E te rangatira tēnā koutou. Tā mihi nui nui i te kai kōrero me whanaunga, kua whakamene mai nei I tēnei huhuinga ki te kōrero I ngā kaupapa. Nau mai te manawa mā rohi, nau mai te manawa nui, tēnei te hono o te rangi kia u, tēnei te hono o te papa kia mau, au taku niwha, aurawa taku niwha, ki te pua wānanga, ki te momoho, ki te whaiao, ki te ao mārama. Haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Whiria te tangata. Nau mai hara mai, welcome everybody who is watching this recording. As society moves from me to we, our hapori or our communities in Aotearoa, New Zealand, continue to navigate what it means to live collectively. In the first instance, it's never been more important to listen to varying perspectives on what unity means and to kōrero about how we navigate this shift together. As technologists, this is an interesting and important kōrero to have, especially in better understanding our roles in bringing people, planet, and shared outcome together. Today, we have some amazing choice as people to share this kōrero with. We give warm welcome to Mātua Anthony Royal, Ngāti Tamatera, Ngāti Raukawa me Ngāpuhi, Li Timu, Ngāti Awa, Nai Te Rangi, Tūhoi, Ngāti Parau, Shannon O'Connor, Ngāti Parau me Ngaitahu, Haitahu, ne. E uri ahau no Ngāti Tamatera, Ngāti Raukawa, Ngāti Parau me Ngāpuhi ko Eliacha tēnei, kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. All of these amazing people have and are doing choice mahi across the motu. Please check out their bios, which NZ Tech have attached. Definitely a fantastic, awesome mana collective for this particular kaupapa. Ne. As we have limited time and 2 questions, let's begin. So, what does kotahitanga or unity mean to you? We'll start with Anthony, Mātua Anthony. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Al. Tēnā te miki a koutou kei konei, te rānei, mai te ipurangi. We haven't got much time, so I'll just launch straight into it. Kotahitanga. Perhaps I might just start by saying what I don't think it is. And I don't think kotahitanga is us all having to agree to the same thing. We don't have to be all completely in agreement with something. That's not what kotahitanga or unity means. To me, it's a process of getting to a position which we may or may not agree with, but at least we've had the discussion along the way. So that's the key, I think, is the process of kotahitanga, not the end result. Now, a really good example of that is that in my role as CEO of the Interim Māori Spectrum Commission, we've been working over the last couple of years to try and design a national governance entity for Māori, inclusive for all Māori, to govern the new organisation that will be established by legislation hopefully next year. Now, we've been going through a whole process of working with people trying to come up with a model that everybody can agree in. And the reality is there is no perfect model that every Māori across the country will agree with. But what is important is the process of getting there, of actually letting people have the opportunity to have their say, so at least that they feel as though there's, they've been involved in that process and in the discussion. So just very quickly, I just think that kotahitanga is not the end goal, it's the process of working together, arriving at somewhere whereby we've all had that opportunity to contribute in a respectful way, with views to listen to. And at the end of the day, we may land on something that you may not necessarily agree with, but at least you've been part of that conversation and support Māoridom moving forward in a cohesive manner. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Anthony. That's great. I was almost trying to take lots of notes, because when I was thinking about kotahitanga, I was thinking similarly that it's about he mahi ngātahi, collaborating, working towards common goals and sharing common values, but that it doesn't always mean that we want to execute it all in the same way. And so when I think of that, I also think that kotahitanga means addressing the inequity that surrounds us. So providing uwhi for those who face bigger challenges. And when I'm thinking about it right now from the Tairasi with the struggles that we've had this year with weather, I think about kotahitanga also meaning unity with the whenua, and how we take care of papatuanuku, how we can reduce the damage to our whenua so that we have our future together. And I also was thinking about kotahitanga from an education perspective. So the mahi that we're doing with rangatahi, I think about kotahitanga being that we recognise the mātauranga that we've been gifted from our tipuna, and that we can bring that into the learning experiences, and that it's valued and that it's invited. And so what that looks like in a digital space, which I know we're going to explore later, is something that I'm really keen to explore. Yeah, that's where I'm sitting right now.
Kia ora Shannon, kia ora Anthony. Kia ora koutou te whakarongo mai maki tēnei o ngā huitopa. Yeah, I've come up with 3 C's, whānau. I'm a pretty simple person, but community, collaboration, and connectivity. I think these are 3 things that are inherently part of our culture and our makeup as a people, as a community. Being a part of something is important to us, whether that be our marae, whether that be our hapu, or whether that be our iwi. So I think community, or the sense of community, is incredibly important to me, but also to our community. And if I look at the whakapapa of Te Mataro, the Māori Tech Association, as the CE of that organisation, it kind of started out with an aspiration to create community, so that us who are working out there in the digital and tech space could come together, could share in our aspirations and goals, could share in our mātauranga, as well as our experiences and insights, ultimately to empower our hapori, our communities. So that's definitely where Te Mataro started out. And if I think about collaboration as well, it's a really big part of the way we work anyway. It's very natural, whether that be on the marae, which is a very typical scenario for us, whether that be out in the community doing the mahi that we do, individually with our own organisations, or to coming together as groups. Connectivity, and this will lean into the next part of our session around how we use technology to maintain connectivity. Well, that's incredibly important as well. We saw with the advent of COVID how incredibly important such virtual communication tools like this very one we're using now became quite important for us as Māori and humans, actually, just to maintain that connectivity, because we need that connectivity to enable us to exist, but also to do the mahi that we do, every day, every week, every month. So, kia ora.
Choice. Love it. Loving the kōrero. For me, kotahitanga unity is my why. It's my driving force. It informs my approach. It drives everything I do, and also the spaces that I get involved in. And it is about the movements of today, which will inform legacy, which I'm very, I think all of us are passionate about. So it represents the power of collaboration, working towards the shared goals, and acknowledges that we are all connected. For me also, however, it's about the respect and honour of the diversity of perspectives and experiences that make us unique. Our own unique identity amplifies the collective. And so this is why I get involved in various kaupapa, cross-sector, multi-level, all this stuff to amplify and encourage positive movement in collective approaches. So it's something that I'm living and learning about every single day, and I'm learning more the more and more I get in touch with home, with our whenua, with what's going on, and also the connections with us globally, with our brothers and sisters globally. I'm learning more and more about it every day. Ne. So he pātai tuarua, what role does technology play in unified shared outcome? For me, my background is in technology, as in smart societies. Back then it was known as smart cities. And in the technology space, it was primarily my specialism is in that infrastructure, spatial and survey technology area. So the role that we play in this particular space was strategic and spatial intelligence, which quickly turned into governance intelligence, which is part of the kaupapa of aiding leaders in making informed decisions. This is in multiple sectors and in multiple areas. And it's an area that I feel quite passionate about, which is also involves data sharing and the data sovereignty piece. I also look at the mahi and the portfolio in marae resilience and how we start at that education and engagement phase and then quickly move toward the setup of critical and intelligent infrastructure on our marae, which is another lesson learnt from the smart city experiences, especially over the past 15 years. I think about, as Māori, how our people network works and the nuance that is missed in the digital network and how we can be better creators and leaders of digital and intelligence networks. So there's lots of things, there's lots of projects and initiatives that we could be involved in. But I think it's more than that. I think if we can elevate out and look at what the strategic thought process and how processes and how technologists can be more involved in unity and this particular kaupapa, I think we will be surprised where we land. So that's a bit from me. Kia ora, Anthony.
Kia ora. I was just listening to your kōrero and I was thinking about, on one side, you've got Unity and the types of tools that are now available for us to express that or to get involved. But before I talk about that further, if we just look at the other end of the spectrum, the tools that we've had in place now for the last couple of decades has changed year on year. And we are seeing a period now where these tools are being used for the exact opposite of unity. We know that there are actors, both in our country and more particularly from outside, who use these tools specifically to create disunity. And so unity is under attack. And we are seeing that day on day. So that's a real challenge for us, and one of the things that we've got to try to combat. So you'll see the rise of racism, the rise of terrorism, hate speech. All of these things are amplified by the tools which we use for good. So we need to think about some of the ways in which we can combat some of the negatives that we find here, even some of the simple things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So when we start thinking about unity amongst our whānau, amongst our communities, we should be thinking about how effectively we do use these tools. And one of the interesting things is even the simple tool, email, can be used very effectively to create disunity. And people are continuing on to how to do that. And so I think one of the things we need to think about is how do we make sure that not just rangatahi, but everybody is using these tools appropriately. A really good example is that when somebody has a problem, sends an email accusing somebody of something, and then they copy every man and their dog into this email, it's a form of it is a form of bullying. And if you're not confident enough just to shut that down and say, I ain't engaging you in this environment. If you've got a problem, pick up that phone and call me. And that's the response. We don't really teach those kind of simple skills to people. It might seem obvious, but actually so many people are using these tools to create disunity. Where a simple phone call to sort out problems is important, and it goes well beyond that. And social media obviously has a big impact. But if you look at the positive things that these tools technology tools have got. We now have connection to marae. Marae are more strongly connected to the whānau than they've ever been before. There are great opportunities for marae to be using these tools to help support them sustainably. We're now seeing marae, being equipped with much better communication systems, supporting communities in times of disaster. There are so many opportunities that we can be using these tools to create unity. But I do think one of the things that we do need to make sure we create awareness of is how these same tools are potentially and actively from some parts of our society creating disunity. And part of being, of achieving Kotahitanga is recognizing those and dealing with them. Kia ora. That's my first thought for the moment. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Anthony. It's kind of terrifying, right? I guess it's polarizing. What the speed at which technology is rapidly changing means that we don't have common sense or an etiquette that we have a shared understanding of. And so it becomes a bit of an education piece on when it's right to use technology or how we use it. I think about the Māori diaspora, that 1 in 5 Māori are over in Australia. And I think that ability for our whānau to connect back home on Facebook pages, to have our marae on there sharing waiata, sharing historical photos and being able to work on your whakapapa in that digital space is very exciting. But on the other side, we've got the inequity that's growing because technology is changing rapidly. Accessibility, some people think that it's not a problem, we all have these devices, but there's actually a real divide, and the divide is growing. And so as our organisations move faster forward into this digital world where we fill in all our forms online, we interact online, then it creates a massive gap where some of our people are not connected and they no longer have that ability to make the phone call because there's no one on the end of the phone. They can't go into that store or the bank or the agency because it's all facilitated online. And then you lose the ability to gain the access and support you need. And so we know that that's affecting our communities in different ways, from our Pākeke being able to access support to even our tamariki being able to adequately access education. We're coming out of a period of time where the whole country, the globe, went into a work remotely and study online. And not to discredit the amazing initiatives that took place to try and address that inequity, but there was not enough that could be done quick enough. And so that meant that there was not the ability, and there's actually a lack of understanding on really what that picture is of what adequate resource is. Having a mobile phone at home is not the same as having a laptop at home, and what you can do on a mobile phone versus what you can do on a laptop is different. And it does feed into that conversation that you were speaking about, Anthony, about unity actually being under attack or it being threatened, and that instead of us being connected, we are less connected because there is an assumption that we're all in that digital space together, and we're not. Can
I just interrupt you there, because you're getting now on one of my other hobby horses, and that's about education. I think that the digital inequities inside education is something that we should be addressing ourselves. The problem with this is we're all leaving it up to the Ministry of Education to do it for us. And actually, it's communities that need to take charge of schools, decide what it is that they want their communities to do, and make it happen. We've seen places like Manaakilani, Te Manakupe Trust, Te Rangiuperangi and Otaki, where those communities have taken charge of what those schools and how those schools teach inside digital pedagogy, and we're seeing amazing results. Now, if we were able to do that right across the country, we would be transforming the education system. But what do? No, we don't. We sit back and we let the Ministry of Education kind of dictate what it is that we should be doing. and they're doing it really slowly. Sorry, I shouldn't be saying that.
No, you jump into you're opening up matua so that I get to share about the mahi that I do. So Tōnoi Kailab it's exactly what we're talking about, is that we're an ally to what's happening in education, but we use pūrākau Māori and to inform the way that we explore digital technologies, so that our people are strengthened and recognise the strengths that they already bring to this learning, and it invites whānau to learn alongside our tamariki so that we can all rise up together. And I agree with you that it's a community focus, that it's a collective, and there are amazing pop-ups happening across Aotearoa.
Yeah, I guess I'll just riff off that, in that, you know, there's a lot of digital inequities that exist in New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand. And I believe unification and indeed the shared outcomes can only be achieved through participation. So if we can't get to the line, then we're never going to be able to participate, to be able to unify ourselves to achieve these shared outcomes. So it speaks strongly to the digital divide, which we've just been touching on, but to be more specific, the three challenges that face our Māori Pacific communities, that's access to affordable internet connectivity, computing equipment like a proper computer, not just a phone, and the third one, and indeed the most critical challenge for us, is digital literacy, or the lack thereof. So it speaks to the education piece, it speaks to the lack of visibility and representation, so that our rangatahi, the next generation, can follow us into this digital and technology realm. It speaks to the inadequacy of the mainstream education system, whereby our kids are not being navigated into pathways in STEM. So it's a very multi-faceted sort of issue. But I believe that there's a lot of mahi going on currently. Te Mataurau is leading some of that. Of course, Anthony and his team are leading some of that mahi as well. But we really need to be able to shift that digital divide, or at least reduce the gap, so that we can actually have a place at the starting line. And also, just to finish, and I'll hand it back to you, Ali, the one thing that I will finish with is it's really important also that we need to be at the decision-making tables, having a voice, because without that, you know, it's very difficult for us to effect change.
Tautoko, kōrero. Nā mihi ki a koutou, tēnei te mihi nui ki ngā kai kōrero, mō rātou whakaaro, mō moia, wa wāta, tuarua tēnei te mihi ki a koutou katoa. Hiki tia te rongo mai tāwhiti o tēnei kaupapa o tēnei hui, tūkua ki ia, tūkua ki oi, ko ranganui ki runga, ko papatua nuku ki raro. Tūturu whakamaua kia teina, haumi e hui e tai ki. Nō reira e hoa mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou.